Good morning, everybody. Thursday morning, November 19th. It's almost Thanksgiving for those of you here in the States. And we have a special celebrity. No, I'm not talking about Carl Lloyd, although you all know that he is a special kind of celebrity. We have an old Instructure alum. She's not old. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that she used to be at Instructure about 3-4 years ago. She's now at our incredible partner, Unicon. Linda Fang, welcome, my friend. With that, we got us a treat. It's not very often we get Carl Lloyd on here, everybody, and we do today. We've got him. The king of all things product has joined us. They're going to talk all about LTI 1.3, and so I'm handing it over, Linda and Carl, to you. Take it away.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, so I'm super excited to be here with Carl, and this is a mini reunion of sorts. I'm always happy to have an opportunity to hang out with Carl. So we are here. We're going to talk to you a little bit about LTI 1.3, some new developments that are happening, and all the cool stuff you can do with it in Canvas. So a little bit about me, and I guess we can go ahead and kick off our slide deck here. So I'm Linda Fang, as Mark said. I'm a software architect at Unicon. And we help a lot of schools and companies with LTI. Over the past year or so, we've been involved in the LTI Advantage work. So we're starting to help a lot more people now with that, especially also in Canvas. I guess, so why don't we go ahead and get started with our slides. So in case, just a little bit of background on LTI, in case you haven't heard about it, LTI stands for Learning Tools Interoperability. It is a standard from IMS, and it's designed to help learning platforms like Canvas to proliferate a number of different unique learning tools and have the ability for teachers and learners to go around and have kind of one seamless experience to enable them to get to know and use a lot of different variations on things that they might want to do. Maybe they want to do flashcards or some cool math 3D thing or chemistry sets, or even online quizzes, flashcards, things of that nature. So the ability to proliferate and have almost like the 1,000 flowers that bloom, this was really the vision early on with LTI. And there was a version of LTI that became really popular over the years, which was 1.1, and it was widely adopted. Primarily, actually, Canvas was one of the main drivers and the main reasons why LTI became so successful. And Carl, I think you and I were around at that time.
Yep.
We saw how LTI created the platform that Canvas has become today. So over the years, in the last several years, the IMS members became aware of this new market need to adopt OAuth 2 for authenticating services in a more modern security way. And so the LTI 1.1 standard, the IMS community basically came together and decided to revamp LTI 1.1. And Carl, I was just thinking back this morning that I remember the exact moment when everyone in that IMS community just decided to revamp it. It might have been over pizza at University of Michigan with Dr. Chuck. And after that, I also remember how you and the Canvas developers basically took the lead in crafting the new specification for 1.3. And you guys really drove the whole team that came together across the whole industry and got it moving forward to use the industry accepted standards using JSON web tokens and following the OpenID Connect flow. So let's talk a little bit more about the LTI 1.3, which is sort of the new hope here for IMS standards. And also something called LTI Advantage, which is the set of services that is designed to sit on top of the LTI Foundation, which is called 1.3. So the real improvement here with 1.3 and the Advantage services is around this set of extendable services. So now that you have a foundation with LTI 1.3 core, now you can layer on all these different services, and they can actually be mixed and matched. And this gives tool developers and people who want to create better and richer courses and the whole experience around courses, this gives them a lot more flexibility. So currently the 3 Advantage services that are out there that are getting adopted in the market are names and role provisioning. So that allows you to see who is in the course and also their roles. So you can distinguish between students and instructors and other types of roles in a course. The assignment and grade service, which allows you to pass the assignment results back from the tool to the LMS, and also gives us a lot more flexibility with actually naming the essentially the column in the grade book. So you get a lot more flexibility that you don't have to be kind of one-to-one between a launch and an outcome result. And then the last one is deep linking, which again, Canvas kind of paved the way around that deep linking service early on with what was called content item. But the ability there is so that you can go into, for an instructor, and select, kind of browse the list of different content items that are available to you to pull into your course. And this gives the instructor a lot more power to be able to pick and choose. And then also in the course itself, you end up with a link that goes straight into some portion of content that really saves the student from having to navigate all the way through the different layers. So now I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that we hear when we talk to people about LTI. And as we hear from these folks, and we really a lot of times just talk to them about what challenges they have with their integrations. And what we're finding is that there are some common symptoms that we notice. And this makes us realize that they might need LTI. So keep going, Carl. So one of the symptoms might be that if you have users that are using a tool and they just can't get into the tool. Another one might be that a particular tool provider might come to us and say, we have all these manuals that have to explain to users how to connect into their tool from the LMS. And maybe they have different manuals for all the different LMS platforms that they might have to support in the market. There's also ones where they're frustrated that they might have to pay some fee to connect from different LMSs. And the last one is really that they want to give users the same experience no matter which LMS they're using. This is a really strong driver for a lot of the content proliferation and really freedom of choice that people want to have when using tools for learning. So then one of the, we also tend to see different ways that people implement with LTI standards. So the very basic flavor of this is a tool launch. So you want to just come from your LMS and launch into your tool. You do some things there and you bring back a result. You might even, in this basic flavor, want to link to that content item to pick and choose from different parts of the course. A little more fancy, if you want your ice cream sundae to have a little more flavor, is to use some of the Advantage services that I just talked about. So in the case of being able to use an assignment and grade service, that allows you to now decouple the grade results, and you don't have to have just a one-to-one with a launch to a result. You might also want to make the experience differentiated based on whether or not it's a learner or an instructor. And then the last one is where you might want richer outcomes with the ability to pass back more than just a score. And then what I call the out there examples, this is where some tools and tool providers are almost acting as their own mini platform. In that case, they might have their own separate grading experience that they want to support. They might want to have some ability to interact with users outside of the LMS. And so we do see this example, rarely, but it does happen. But I kind of just wanted to give you that sense that there is this range of how people might be using LTI to enrich the Canvas learning systems experience. So with that, I kind of want to shift over and really, I think you'll see that for different types of users, LTI and the whole standard that's been developed and adopted by our industry has really enriched the experience and enabled a lot more for each type of person that comes at it, depending on your perspective. So now I want to shift over and have Carl talk a little bit, and I really want to hear from you, Carl, and let's talk about how this is going to work, how this is working today in Canvas.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So there's a little bit of difference between what was typically done with LTI 1.1, which was pretty much just handing over a key and a secret pair and some configuration information. And in LTI 1.3, it's a little different. It uses the OpenID Connect standard to handle the security authentication between the platform and the tool. And so there's a little bit more information that needs to take place. And here's an example. This is the IMS reference implementation. This is the test configuration I have in my Sandbox account. But there's a couple key pieces of information that tools will need to be aware of. They'll need to have a public key, and here we've got support for a public JWK URL, or if you have the key yourself, we can paste it into the system. And then there will be the OpenID Connect initiation URL, which is important for kicking off basically the authentication steps between Canvas and your tool. And then there's also the target link URI and the redirect URIs, which come into play during launches. And so there's a little bit more to set up. And then also with the LTI Advantage services, we have basically these services in here that can be scoped. So it's important to know that if you're using the assignments and grade service, or you're using names and roles provisioning service to do things like sync rosters for the course between Canvas and your tool, that these will need to be enabled depending on what aspects of those services that you want to take advantage of. And then lastly, in Canvas, there's placements. Canvas has a whole number of placements that are inside the system where a tool can be surfaced to be part of the user experience inside of Canvas. And these can be managed right here. And there's a whole list of them. So I'm not going to go into that. And that's something that's a little bit unique to Canvas, because we've kind of added LTI to almost most user experiences in Canvas. So that's just something to be aware of. And then on top of this, so this would be something that would be either provided to us as Canvas to do a multi-tenant installation, but you can also work with administrators at institutions and schools to configure a tool specifically to your application. And where that might come into play is if you need to have a specific target link URI or something that's specific to their configuration of your tool. The other things that are important to note is that our documentation, you can go to api.instructure.com, and our documentation is on the very bottom left. If you scroll down to the bottom, there's external tools documentation, and this is where we have all the information you need. So there's some key pieces that you'll need from Canvas. You'll need to know what our issuers are, and this is what our issuers are going to be for each of the environments. So we have a Canvas production and a beta and a test environment. So it's important to note those. And so we also have those for the OpenID Connect authorization flow for the redirects. And then just lastly, for the platform public keys, you also need to know that. And then just on top of everything here, just a key piece of information is information on this deployment ID. The deployment ID is generated by Canvas when a administrator goes and actually makes that tool available to a certain part of the course or account hierarchy. So whether that's available to our courses, or maybe all the courses in a sub account, or maybe even individual courses. Each time that deployment happens, Canvas issues a deployment ID, and that is provided in all launches, but it's also provided in the UI. So if that's a necessary item that you need prior to the tool working inside of a Canvas account, there are multiple ways for you to get that. And I think, let's see.
I was just gonna just mention that I think with the OpenID Connect flow and the way that the deployment ID works and so on, it's sort of a back and forth dance that happens, yes. And it's really important that this works correctly for security reasons, and there's a lot of flexibility for I guess the reason why it exists is to make sure that people aren't spoofing the account and so on, and that the platform and the tool are really have the secure communication back and forth. We have a video that we made that walks through the message flow for the OpenID Connect in order to do the LTI 1.3 OAuth 2 launch using JOT tokens.
Yeah, and I think we have a slide that's got a link to, or shows kind of where you can find all that. And I think we'll share those with Mark as well, so you can post them up. So just a little bit of what's going on inside as far as Canvas goes is a LTI platform. So right now we are actively testing with vendors who are supporting a 1.1 to 1.3 migration for their tools for our Canvas customers. We had to make some changes in Canvas so that if a 1.3 tool showed up in a Canvas account, that Canvas would prefer it, and basically use that configuration information for all the subsequent launches. And then for any of those services, database records are required, like for the gradebook or for names and roles services endpoints, we create those as launches occur, or as tools basically query to get that data from Canvas. So that right now, that's in production, that's in all the environments, and it's something that we have people actively testing it as we speak right now. The next thing we're working on is custom parameters for deep link requests, and honestly, I don't go any week without this coming up. This has become a huge request from our vendor community. And historically, Canvas has handled this in a different way, where they were parameters that were basically appended to the end of the launch URL. But as the content item support that we had in Canvas that eventually became the deep link specification in IMS, they added this capability for a custom parameter for a tool to basically say, for this link that's being embedded in this piece of content inside this course, we need this identifier or this piece of information to be able to be returned back to us when users launch it. So that's what we're getting ready. We've got it all scoped out. We're getting ready to start it and get it ready to get into production as quickly as we can, because yes, I hear the community loud and clear that this is needed. So then the next couple of things we're looking at is we're right now scoping requirements for being able to support with deep link requests, multiple assignments into the Canvas workflow, and what this is important for if you are either a Canvas admin or an instructor. This is the ability for a tool to provide a workflow for them to return multiple assignments in one workflow versus going in and creating a Canvas assignment and then going and setting it up with the tool for that specific link, saving it, and then go to the next one and then doing that over and over. They can basically, we can support a workflow where they can send back 4 or 5 assignments from their tool into Canvas and have basically those assignment shells set up, and also pass things like due dates and the grade, the point value, so that you don't have to duplicate that work between both systems. And then the other thing we're looking at right now that we're scoping is just adding additional capabilities for developer keys, which is important for our Canvas admins who want to manage all these tools, that all their basically all their teachers and their faculty want to come to them and are asking, hey, we want to use this tool. So they need more availability to manage the tools, see what they're scoped for, see what they can do. And so that's the other thing we're looking at. And then the other thing that we're kind of there's all a bunch of things that are in the air that are coming through the IMS working group. There's LTI dynamic registration, which is important to note, because if you were a little overwhelmed when I was showing the the configuration screen. This simplifies that process by providing basically a registration URL that can be provided to a tool, and they can kick off that process and configure it with Canvas programmatically. So that's something that we're looking at. And then there's a couple LTI services that are kind of percolating up through the process. There's submission review, which is basically kind of like a gradebook launch to a piece of content for a third-party tool. So a tool could provide maybe some analytics or some type of reporting around how the student interacted with the piece of content in their system, and provide a link in the gradebook for the teacher to review. There's a group service. And then lastly, there's a proctoring service, which is starting to get lots of attention. So we're keeping some eyes on it and trying to figure out like where that can fit inside of our plans.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think that a lot of the activity and demand that we have right now for the new and enhanced way of using LTI 1.3 really is a function of how people are actively trying to use it and actually trying to take advantage of those services and trying to think of additional services that might be needed. So this really is fulfilling the promise that we've had with, one of the reasons why the whole community came together to try to build out that tool interoperability standard all those years ago. I really feel like we're really getting there now, and the similar to kind of how today, people can do like smart home devices, whereas, moving from just a light switch to something that can be remotely controlled. There's a lot of infrastructure and systems that need to be in place to support it. Some of it is invisible and hidden and you may not see it, but there's a lot of work that goes on, and eventually it results in something that helps make our life better.
Yeah, I totally agree. And then you were reminding of kind of like all the events that led up to coming up with LTI 1.3. And I mean, to be fair, like it wasn't, I mean, we were part of the group that led basically the involvement or the evolution of the standard. But we also partnered with our counterparts at our competitor platform companies, and also some of the tool vendor companies, to create this new standard. And it's been really interesting because we knew as we created this that it would be building almost like the foundation to do a bunch of cool stuff on top of LTI, that core part. And it's almost overwhelming how much stuff is coming from the community now as a platform, because as a platform we have to basically support pretty much everything. And so it's becoming overwhelming of all the things that are coming out of the community and saying like, we've got this great idea and we can do this. So it's awesome. It's great to see that.
Hey, Linda and Carl, let's have you take this question from Matthew on YouTube. This is great news on custom parameters. Currently, we've gotten around this by adding query strings to the link provided by the deep linking response. Is there any plan to prevent that in the future?
No, we don't plan to remove support for the parameters being part of the query string. We just plan on adding the custom parameter support as part of the deep link return message.
Awesome. Keep going.
Great. Well, basically, we just wanted to throw up these resource links here for all of you. We've been, again, here at Unicon, we basically live to help customers out there who want to do stuff with LTI. We've made several videos. We even did recently a spotlight series with Martin Leonard from Turnitin, where he takes you through being able to essentially set up all the LTI services live in a developer environment. So he converts a tool that he built, which is a game that he wrote, and essentially, eventually, you see that it starts working in an LMS. So if you have questions or want to talk to someone about using LTI, we're available, and you can come talk to us. And Canvas is really up and coming in terms of being able to use it, and a lot of the new features. There's lots of different ways that people can take advantage of what's coming down the road.
Love it. Let's take this question from Paul. on YouTube. How does LTI 1.3 tackle the cross-site cookie problem we're seeing with the current germination of LTI tools?
That is a super great question. And LTI 1.3 by itself does not tackle that. That's just general how some challenges with iframes and cookies and how the browsers work. And those are heavy discussions currently being had within the IMS LTI working group to try to find a good solution to that we can publish out to basically the rest of the integration community.
Yeah, so yesterday I think there was like a 3-hour-long session within IMS to try to think of good ways to do this. And at Unicon, we've actually been doing a fair amount of testing recently to learn about what are some of the strategies for tackling this problem. I think it kind of comes down to that with the browsers and the direction that they're going, the biggest caveat is don't use cookies. So don't try to store data if you don't need to. But if you do need to, the next best thing is essentially to essentially create it so that you might have to do a hop and then do another launch from there. So then that becomes a first party cookie. So you end up with essentially another tab. So launching into a new window or a new tab is a way to do it. And then there are some other strategies that we've been investigating for how to get around this. And we're actually working on a blog post that will hopefully give some guidance to people. And we're working with the IMS community as well for getting to a point where we can coalesce on the best strategies there.
Fantastic. Any other questions? Throw them in here. We'll be on for another minute or so. Carl, Linda, any last comments or statements on LTI 1.3 before we move on?
Just that I think that there's a lot of interest in being able to have more tight connections between platforms and tools. And the more that platforms and tools can know a little bit about what each others are doing, it enables that more intelligent way that a user experience from where they're starting in the platform and ending up in the tool, it can be more personalized. You can do things. I've seen some really good examples where, for example, one tool that I know of that created, they support the Jupyter Notebook lab environment that is hooked into Canvas. So their tool, when you launch into their notebook, if you're an instructor, then your tool, the notebook actually has additional tabs that give you, as an instructor, more things you can do. But then if you launch in as a student, you don't see those additional more privileged tabs. So this is one really great example of how, with the new standard and what Canvas can do, it's really enabling a better experience.
It's fantastic. Yeah. Carl, wrap us up.
Yeah, the only thing I'd like to add, and I don't know if this question has come up, but it comes up quite a bit, is what's Canvas going to do with LTI 1.1 and 1.0? Honestly, for right now, we're not going to do anything. We're going to keep it out and available. We have thousands of tools in our ecosystem that use that standard. It's important to note, though, that as of January 1, IMS isn't going to accept any new certifications or even renewals for those previous standards. So it's important that even though Canvas is going to have a long tail before we remove support for any of the previous standards, I mean, we're probably looking at 2+ years for that process. I highly recommend you start looking at 1.3. If you haven't already, you will start hearing from the education community of requests for that to be required for contracting.
Love it. We'll click on these links that I shared in there. Fantastic presentation by Carl and Linda. These are available for as long as you need them. So go check us out on YouTube. Big thanks again to Linda and to the Unicon team. We will see you guys again soon. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Thanks.